You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
And thanks for pressing play on this episode of Two and Out as we are at the end of week 14 of the CFL season. It's Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones. Sheldon, I just got back from the grocery store and the car wash, and I took an embarrassing tumble in the car wash. So, you know, the different bays, they're divided, and this one had like a curb with sort of, I don't know, a big giant tarp. And yeah, I went head over heels through the tarp, over the curb. But do you ever fall down and look around and nobody's watching?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
it's off.
I hope there was footage on a security camera so somebody gets a good laugh, but nobody got a good laugh out of it.
Well, the last time that happened to me, I made a TikTok out of it and added JR's voice, and it got some laughs from the boys and from other people. So yes, but at our age, man, we can't fall. It's not the falling that hurts. It's the hitting the ground.
Like, the last episode was brought to you by Advil Muscle and Joint already. So I know that I'm old when I tell my loved ones that I've fallen and they're instantly concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just see how it is in the morning. Currently, I'm okay. But the morning might tell a completely different story, my friend.
Yeah, I hope it's not too bad.
Me too. Week 14 started in La Belle Province as the BC Lions are visitors to the reigning Grey Cup champs. And they weren't very nice visitors, were they? Because they crushed them 37-23. However, this is a game that at many times this season and last year too, a team like the Alouettes would have been able to take advantage of, right? Like this is very uncharacteristic of them to force all of those turnovers and not make BC pay. Nathan Rourke, 3 interceptions, a couple of them off of receivers' fingertips, and Montreal really wasn't able to take advantage of those turnovers that they forced. It was really a bizarre game that way.
Yeah, if you can't take advantage of turnovers, if you can't score, it's just usually a telltale sign that the game is not going to go good for you. Because when you're given those extra offensive series, you need to make the other teams pay for turning that ball over. And like you said, 2 of the 3 of those picks you can't put on Rourke just because they should have been catches. But you have to punish, and an offensive team like that, you have to punish them, especially at home too. That's just something that can just increase the momentum and get those horns going louder and louder and louder. But they were not able to do that, and it cost them.
Well, here's a question. Like, I know we've heard, you know, some of the great quarterbacks of all time, the way they've been spoken about, like Ricky Ray. Like, you'd almost have to have no hands to not catch some of those passes that he was able to throw in his career. Is there an adjustment period, like going from a Vernon Adams to a Nathan Rourke? Sometimes he's like just firing at these guys, and maybe they just haven't adjusted to that yet. I know William Stanback has made strides as a receiving running back this year, but I don't know if he's used to catching lasers like Rourke fired his way.
No, and that's very true, because they do throw the ball very differently. Vernon has more touch on his pass, and Rourke just gets the ball out of there as soon as he can, just because he's able to read those defenses just super quick, and he just fires it in there, and you know that's gonna take some people off guard every now and then, because you expect that ball to be there maybe a second later, and you just got to get those hands up. It'll come with time. It will come.
The Lions offense was off to another fast start in this one. You know, it's 3 minutes into the game, first drive of the game, and they're already up 7-0. But I mean, 2nd and 1, you think the Lions are in short yardage formation, and they are. David Mackey is back there, and it's a 23-yard rush. into the end zone. Montreal, their very next possession ended up in a punt. Then they pick off Nathan Rourke. They do nothing with it. They punted back to BC, and then it's 10-0 Lions at the end of the first quarter. The Montreal offense, Cody Fajardo back in there. They're off the bye, and they just weren't able to get into a rhythm. It's as simple as that. And I mean, before the game, we learned that Austin Mack hit the 6-game injured list. That is big news for the Owls, because when we recorded, I mean, he got off the field during practice. Now he's on the 6th game. I mean, the Alouette receiving core, a lot of people anoint them as, the best receiving core in the league, but when it's just a rotating cast of injuries, they seem to never be at full strength, unfortunately.
Yeah, if they ever were able to get at full strength, then they absolutely would be the best team in the league for receivers. But it's tough. But at the same time, a lot of teams have been using the 6th game very liberally this year. So I don't think it's quite panic time to expect that he'll miss the next 6 games. But that's crushing, because those Owl fans were very excited to get him back, and for that not to happen is truly a shame. And the one weird thing about this game is this is the one game so far this season that the Owls weren't able to make that halftime adjustment, because they've been trailing a lot of games, but then at halftime they've made adjustments. They've changed their game plan. They've changed the focus, and were able to come back. And just this game, they weren't able to overcome it.
The Owls end up coming to within 4 points, 10-6, and then this is the different Lions offense than we've seen over the past month. At the beginning of the year, we were expecting them to be high-flying and scoring at will, and then that dried up right around the Winnipeg shutout, and then it really slowed down for them. But now they're back moving the ball again, and like you said, Montreal, they maybe adjusted a little bit, but BC just answered right back. And I think one of the big things in this one is that BC really had a handle on Walter Fletcher. And Fletcher, his running stats don't really jump off the page at you. They especially don't in this one. He had 6 carries for 21 yards. But in other times this season, he's been able to just crush teams when he catches the ball. And he did have 72 yards in this one, but there were 8 catches. So, I mean, when the running back is the leading receiver on the team, it just, I think, shows that the defense is really shutting things down, and they were relying on Fletcher that way. But big tackles in open space, when Fletcher gets into space, he's made teams pay for 50, 60-yard receptions this season.
And credit to BC's defense, because that's the part of their game that hasn't been up to snuff lately. And they were able to find a way to not only weather the storm of having to be playing extra just because of those 3 interceptions, but they were able to force the Alouettes to not be able to move the ball. So it didn't actually hurt them in the end. But yeah, kudos to BC's defense this game. They did really well.
We'll go to late in the first half. It's 17-6 BC, and there's a pass completed to William Stanback, 19-yard gain, and then he fumbles the ball. At least Montreal had to challenge to have them decide it was a fumble, and I think they first ruled it down by contact. And I thought the angle that we got, at least on TV, I don't know if the command center gets something different. I don't think it was, obvious that it was a fumble. I think Ento was kind of ripping the ball out as he was on his way down, but the one angle, at least the main angle, looked like his butt hit the ground and then the ball popped out. But they ended up giving the ball to Montreal anyway. It's just one of those, I think, I don't know if the command center had different angles, But it was one of those things where, hey, I thought we were going to leave not obvious calls alone, you know?
Yeah, and it was a very quick whistle, which we saw a change after the kind of initial uproar of the command center, a month or so ago when fans were had enough and were calling for changes, and they came out and they did say that they were gonna, let plays go a little bit longer, not have quick whistles. And to me, at least live, the whistle blew, and I don't know how there was a chance of recovery. But again, like you said, they could have different angles. It would be nice if us fans were able to know the angles that they had, and if they did have different angles, and maybe at the end of the game or at the end of the week, there could be like just a little paragraph explaining what the person saw in there to overturn or to not overturn. Like, I don't think that's too much to ask for us fans to get. And then maybe there wouldn't be such negativity towards it if they actually came out and the PR Twitter account or whatever just said, hey, this is why we called it this way. Take it or leave it. Then we can just take it.
Now, that is one turnover that the Owls did take advantage of, and it was at the end of the first half where they ended up scoring a touchdown. I think they gave them 1 second on the clock to do a kickoff at the end of the half, but Speaker has a great touchdown, and the Alouettes are down 4 at the half. So they did take advantage of that call, but when the third starts, Cody Fajardo ends up getting sacked, fumbles the ball, and then the Lions take over and they start the second half with a field goal of their own. So those Alouettes, like you said, it's not characteristic. Cody Fajardo has protected the ball and not turned the ball over, but then the Lions, they came to play. Like, this is a game where they're traveling across country, and the Alouettes are rested off the bye, and I don't think anybody really thought BC would come out with a victory here. All of a sudden, it's funny how fast things change. It's like, oh, well, the Lions are the real deal again.
Yeah, well, like we said, it was a possible Grey Cup matchup, and we thought that it was going to be pretty one-sided just because, if you look back at the odds, teams that have to travel that far, facing a team that's off a bye, you would think, like, I don't want to go Steiner math here, but you think you'd have about a 33% chance to win here. But this is the second time this year that we've seen a team coming off a bye absolutely crap the bed against a team that's traveled. So this season has been bizarre land. It's been great. It's been terrible, but it's been entertaining. And I just hope that continues.
That's the thing with an 18-game season. It's just such a long journey, and even if you split the season into thirds, you can have a different opinion of your team inside those thirds. Like, you talk to Rider fans in June, and you talk to Elks fans in June. Completely different circumstances. Ticat fans are consistent, though, so you should take that to the bank. To begin the fourth quarter, the Alouettes did score a touchdown to come within 5. Now, they did fail with the 2-point conversion, and then they recovered the onside kick. And you thought, oh boy, the Champs got the momentum. But the Lions come up with the big stop, and the very next drive, they score a touchdown. It's 33-23 Lions, and at that point, it was over for the Alouettes. So they were that close to getting the momentum back, but the Lions defense got the stop that they hadn't been getting from the past 2 games, or few games. I mean, is the addition of Matthew Betts really just making that big of a difference, Sheldon?
It's got to help because he's a leader of that team, and now you get that leader back, and maybe there's something that was missing just in that locker room, in that confidence. He's come back. He's got sacks in both his games back. Again, like I said last week, he's on pace for one a game. He's still on that pace. And maybe he's just that calming voice in there that says, like, listen, boys, we can do this. Because that's the thing. You never see him get too hyped up. He'll celebrate a little bit on the field, but then you see him sitting down on the bench after the play, and he's just stone faced looking at the camera. Like,
that's my favorite thing
ice,
about
yeah.
Betts.
I know, just ice in his veins. He just stared in like a hole into you.
I don't know how
after he gets
break.
a sack.
I'd start laughing.
No, he's like Undertaker when they're trying to get him to do a spinneroo, and he just won't break.
So this is completely off topic. I grew up going to drama class instead of band, and one of our warm-up exercises was the instructor going around the class trying to make you laugh. I was the first one out every time. So I know people mock me for laughing, but that's been my entire life. I just can't turn it off. But the Lions, they had 4 sacks in this one. Betts didn't have one. Covington was a monster in this one. Tavai, Tehema in this one. But sometimes a D-line, you add a beast to that unit and it opens up blocks and lanes for the rest of the D-line, and maybe the addition of Betts is really just doing that for the rest of his teammates. And I think this is sort of a different Lions offense than years past because William Stanback got 20 carries. That's not a thing we've seen from a Lions offense, and I know he's playing in his old digs, and he has his best game of the year, 128 yards and a touchdown. I mean, if they're going to be able to pass for 300 yards and run for his 128 plus Rourke's 27 plus Mackey's 33, that's going to be a tough offense to deal with down the stretch.
Just about Betts before you go on. I thought he had one in the game, so they take it away from him after the fact? Because that's weird. But anywho.
I'm looking at the stat sheet, and he's not credited one there.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, I take back what I said then. But yeah, going about the offense, I think any time in the CFL, if you're able to run the ball 20 times a game, you're more than likely going to win that game.
Yeah.
Just look at the Bombers over the past 4 years in their little mini dynasty that they think they have. They've run the ball just absolutely consistently, and a lot of times probably right around that 20-yard or 20-time mark. It's something that I wish a certain other team would do, is actually commit towards the run. But it was great to see William go off, because I know how. I don't think he felt respected at the end of leaving. I don't think he's the only player that, after we saw an interview with another player of a game we'll talk about next here. But there's definitely a chip on his shoulder that he needed to get off there, and he did. And just very happy to see that.
So I'm just going over the stats sheet. It says Cody Fajardo was tackled for a loss 5 times, but only sacked 4 times. So maybe Betts got the one tackle for loss. I don't know how they figured that out, to be honest. But Alexander Hollins was the leading receiver for the Lions, and it's been a while for him. There was one of the drives where they were going to him every single play. He had 6 catches, 78 yards, and then the Lions moving the ball despite throwing 3 interceptions. Cody Fajardo, 27 of 37, 240 yards, a touchdown and a pick. They couldn't run the ball, really, and their leading receiver was Walter Fletcher. Other than that, it was Cole Speaker, 6 catches, 46 yards, and that wraps it up for that game. Maybe it is a Grey Cup preview, the BC Lions and the Montreal Alouettes. Maybe it is going to be the team that won the early game of Super Saturday in the CFL, the Ottawa REDBLACKS, who crushed the Toronto Argonauts Well, okay, Toronto made the score look respectable in the fourth quarter. It was 31-3 REDBLACKS at halftime. It ended up being 41-27 REDBLACKS. And I know there's always talk about public enemy number one in the CFL. Is it number 90 in Saskatchewan? We'll get to that. Is it the BC Lions for overspending? But I think the one that everyone can agree on, it's Chad Kelly of the Toronto Argonauts. And there are fans across the league that are feeling joy with some of these struggles. And he had 56 pass attempts, Sheldon. 4 interceptions. He did throw for 3 touchdowns, but those 4 INTs are the reason that the Argos lost. I mean, there's your hard-hitting analysis.
Yeah, I don't think all of them were on him. There was one that was there. The second pick six was definitely a tip from his receiver that he should have got. But
there was one where it was supposed to be a screen, and then the receivers just straight up blew their blocks.
yeah, and you know, with Webb getting 2 pick sixes, that's pretty incredible.
It is.
And yeah, I'll just go into this before you do it. So what I was talking about before about another player that definitely had a chip on his shoulder, there was a post-game interview with Darius Pickett, and he was you could see that he was doing some chirping with Ryan Dinwiddie at the bench there, and he said in that interview after that he didn't even get a call, didn't even get a contract offered to him. He's one of the best players in the league, and you don't even try to get him back, man. That's disrespectful. That is disrespectful.
I just think that's an odd way to build a team.
Yeah, well, there's people that are saying that they think that Dinwiddie's lost the room. They think that the issues with Chad Kelly are coming to a head, not between the two of them, but just it's becoming too much, and it's becoming a distraction, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I know there's a lot of people in the CFL family who are still... they still are donating money to women's shelters and women's charities with every interception and sack and all that stuff. So a lot of money was raised this game by some certain people. So I guess good for that. But I'm kind of over it. I'm kind of over the like, he's back. There's nothing that we can do about it. So
yeah, but I mean, if you're going to be in the stands, you need a villain, man.
And, for sure. And those no me no chants, you could hear that again. That's good, I guess. I don't know.
I think it's kind of funny, man.
It's funny. Yeah, no, it is. It's just we were talking about this off air before we started. I'm tired of the stuff outside of the games taking precedent over the really good games that we've been having this season. It's getting frustrating, but
I get that.
That's what we have. That's what we get paid to talk about. Well, we don't get paid. But
I think it's the age of social media, though.
Oh, for sure.
There's no nuance. All of it is black and white. If you're not with me, you're against me, and you're an idiot, and you're a moron. So,
or super biased and a dumbass.
Should we do a mean tweet segment with Sheldon?
Yes, we absolutely. We should just do that for TikTok or something, or Reels. Like, that would be great content, actually.
Hey, he got sacked.
Send in your mean tweets.
Yes. Well, I hope this really spurs some agreeable people, because at Sheldon Jones 83, he needs some encouraging things in his mentions, because
just don't compare me to a certain person that resembles a circular object that is involved in sports. Please give me a break.
Oh, that one hurt you. I know it did. But hey, I guess I jinxed it when I said our YouTube comment section was the nicest one on YouTube. All good things do come to an end.
I'm here for it, though. I'm here for it still. So let's go. I got a thick skin.
Now let's talk about this. I've seen some Argo fans, and you talk about Dinwiddie losing the room. He was losing his temper again, in this one. And I don't know, was he arguing with Pickett or was he arguing with his own teammates or team again?
Well,
because that
he was
seems like
definitely
a
going back
regular
and forth
thing.
with Pickett. Yeah, he was definitely going back and forth with Pickett. But yeah, there's certainly been heated arguments with his own players. Let's be honest, he looks rough. He's aged a lot, even just in the past year or two. Something's going on in there, and I don't know if it's just all the negativity around the Chad Kelly situation. If it's just the stress of having to go to your second and then third string quarterback, or even they had another quarterback that a lot of fans were actually really hopeful on, and then they released him once Chad Kelly came back. So I don't know. They went off, 16-2. They crapped the bed in the Eastern Final, but they were still the best team last year. Let's be honest. And then they got kind of pillaged in the offseason. And that's got to be a tough task for any coach to have to deal with, but that's why you get paid. That's why you do it. And they have to figure it out, because with Ottawa playing so well and Montreal playing so well, like they're going from being a 16-2 team to maybe visiting in the Eastern semifinal. Like, if Hamilton goes on a run here and Toronto keeps losing, it's not out of the question. Hamilton hasn't been eliminated yet, so they need to figure it out, and they need to figure it out quick.
Even the year that the Argos won the Grey Cup, there was issues on the sideline, and Brandon Banks was fighting his own guys. There was a lot of crazy stuff going on, but they won the Grey Cup. Yeah. And I'm going to bring up Calgary, which is kind of, I know it sounds out of left field, but I see Calgary fans lamenting the fact that they let Mueller go be OC in Saskatchewan and Corey Mace go to Toronto and then to Saskatchewan, and they're upset that Ryan Dinwiddie has gone to Toronto. But then Toronto fans they want to get rid of Dinwiddie, and Saskatchewan fans want to get rid of Mueller. But Calgary fans are like, why did we let them go? It's kind of funny how this all works. But I know that Chad Kelly brings the big play ability to the Argos, but it feels like they've just stopped running the ball. And I know early this season, they're having success with that, with Cameron Dukes, and I think maybe they didn't trust him to make those big plays or have the ball 56 times like Kelly did in this one. But I just feel like in the past couple of years, they had balance. And now with Kelly back, they're just forcing the ball down the field when you have Kadeem Carey in such a strong offensive line. He got 5 carries for 46 yards. And I know they got behind the 8 ball early. But if the passing game is turning the ball over this often, why are they giving up something that has been their bread and butter for the past couple seasons?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But like you said, they did get down a lot early, so you have to. And I think just the way that Toronto's offense has been built, they've always been, or ever since Dinwiddie has been there, they've always been that team that was able to strike super fast, and just kind of like how Zach Collaros is able to just drive the field in 3 plays and score a touchdown. And so I assume they were just trying to get that done, and that's why there were so many pass attempts. But yeah, it's not unlike the Roughriders. They have a running back right now who's playing, or who has a high yards per carry average, but they're not using him. They're not committing to the run, and neither is Toronto, neither did Montreal. You see, that's 3 teams this week that didn't commit to the run, and none of those teams won. So the CFL, I've always felt, it is a passing league. You need play action to be successful in offense. And if you don't have a viable threat running the ball, you're not going to be able to get those linebackers or those DBs biting on the fake runs.
Yeah, Toronto's first possession of the game was a 2-and-out, and there was no running plays at all to Kadeem Carey. And on the road, I mean, try to gain some sort of momentum. I mean, like I said, the offensive line and the strong running backs that they have, whether it's Adeboboye, McMahon, or Carey, they just didn't get that opportunity early in the game to try to, especially it was a rainy day, like it was a monsoon, and they didn't even really try to get it going. But I mean, fans are concerned about the effort. I mean, this is basically for that right to host the East semifinal, and the Red Blacks showed up and the Argos didn't, and they looked lost. Kelly looked lost, and the Red Blacks took advantage every single time in this game. And a note on the Red Blacks, everybody's kind of shaking their head about or wondering Raquel Armstead getting let go. I think Kalen Laburn is, and he only got 10 carries for 47 yards in this one. Now, there was a 33-yard rush in there, so if you do the math, it was 9 carries, 14 yards on top of that. But the Argos front is really, really strong. They're good at stopping the run. But Jamal Morrow, he had a catch. Laburn had 5 catches in this one. They've got 2 strong running backs. Even without Armstead, and these teams see things in practice that we don't, and clearly they're high on Kalen Laburn going forward as one of the main pieces of that offense, running the ball going forward.
Well, absolutely, and running back has just been next man up for them all season, because they lost their running back at the beginning of the season for the whole year, and then they had to go to Rock Armstead, and then there's issues off field that obviously led to that release, and now you got the third guy and the fourth guy, and they're able to get the job done, and I think, it's rude to say kind of that running backs are a dime a dozen, but you do see it every now and then that it's not that hard to find a good running back, and running backs, they typically, I think they have the lowest shelf, or the shortest shelf life of a professional football player now, it seems. You get usually 2, 3, 4 years out of them. If you're lucky and you have like an Andrew Harris, a little bit extra juice there, or if you have, other than Andrew Harris, name a receiver or a running back that's had more than 5 years in the past 10 years. Like, it's tough to name that. So, but it's good to see this next man up, because that's what teams need, and that's what championship teams and winning teams have. They have that ability in their team to scout and to find these players. And everyone wrote off Ottawa, ourselves included, and they are just showing us that when you hunker down and you bring your lunch pail to work, things can happen.
I want to go back to my preseason predictions, because I'm pretty sure I had them making the playoffs. I think I had them.
Okay, I didn't.
I had Hamilton last, and yeah, they are. But
okay,
I don't
then
think
I wrote them off.
Okay, but I don't think I had them at 8-3-1 in the middle of September. There you go. And you talk next man up. Andre Miller gets into the game for the Red Blacks. 5 catches, 95 yards, including a 50-yarder and a touchdown. And Drew Brown protecting the ball again. 30 for 40, 349 yards, and a touchdown for him. Dominic Rhymes, the leading receiver, 10 catches, 138 yards on the day for Dominic Rhymes. And that's the thing with the CFL. That's the thing with pro sports. There are ebbs and flows. And I find that CFL fans, more than any other fan, sorry, Ticat fans, when their team is struggling, they think that the whole league is broken and terrible, and they blame the league, and this is crap because their team sucks. Well, Argo fans, they've been spoiled, man. They're first in the East for, 3 consecutive years? And now they're 500, 12 games into the season? Whoop-de-doo. I mean, I'm sure they'll figure it out. They got a lot of talent there, and they had a 16-2 season. You're going to lose talent, and then the same goes for the Calgary Stampeders, which we will talk about the last game of the week. But now we got to talk about the Banjo Bowl, Mr. Sheldon Jones.
Do we? Do we?
Now, this was the highest attended game of the week, but by 199 people. That will surprise you. 32,343 in attendance as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers beat the Saskatchewan Roughriders 26-21. Now, Wednesday I asked you, is a close loss a moral victory enough to encourage you? Well, how do you feel now?
I don't feel it was a moral victory. However, I saw things that I liked. You saw there was an interception on the first drive. Then there was a blocked punt on the second drive. And, the Riders were able to weather that storm and not give up. They gave up, I think, two field goals, or did they score a touchdown? I can't remember.
Yeah,
but they were
10-0.
10-0. Yeah, okay. Yeah. But still, if that's probably as worse as you could start a game on the road in enemy territory. But they were able to come back and they were able to march and get that touchdown on the next drive. And so that was promising to me. Another thing that was promising to me is I don't think there was any time that I disagreed with any call that Coach Mace made. I don't think there was any glaring issues with his game plan. There was one time where Mark Mueller called a terrible play.
Was that underhand? I don't know if I don't know if that was designed that way or Harris decided to, but
whatever that was terrible. And then let's just get it over with. There's the hit on Chris Streveler.
Just tearing the Band-Aid off here. When I saw that it was number 90 again, I was just
yeah. And I get why the penalty was called. I understand, because in the end of the play there was contact below the knee. Okay, I get that. That contact, in my opinion, was not due to Brown intending to do that. He hit him in the thighs. That's where his tackle was.
It started above the knee,
Yeah, he was getting held and pulled down by a Bomber offensive lineman, and that affected his trajectory. But again, I understand why the penalty was called. I'm not okay with Brown being labeled a dirty player, and that's what's happening just because he happened to injure quarterbacks in back-to-back games. The Labor Day one, was it a dirty hit? I don't think it was a dirty hit. Was it a cheap, unnecessary hit? Yeah, I think it was. But I don't think it was an intent to injure. I think it was, an intent to rattle. Let's say that.
Yeah.
But, you have players after the game saying that they don't think it was dirty. Yeah, Streveler was upset.
Oliveira said that, yeah.
Yeah, Streveler was upset, obviously, and it looked like he was taking out on Brown. But yeah, Brady Oliveira is right there, and he sees it. Zach Collaros at the end of the game said, I don't think Brown's a dirty player, and he's the guy who got hit by him the previous game. And then you have Kenny the King Lawler, who we love, but then he's saying it's a dirty play when he's 30 yards down the field trying to catch a freaking ball. How the hell is he supposed to know it's a dirty play at that point? Okay, that rattled me when I saw that. I don't want to sound biased because I'm getting accused of being biased here, but I just think that Bomber fans are going to see that as a dirty hit. Rider fans are going to not see it as a dirty hit. So we have to go outside of that echo chamber to see what's actually happening. And I think the only place that we can do that is let's look at what the players or the players and the coach said. So I think it's water under the bridge. They don't think he's dirty. Let's just get off that stupid word. And again, like I said before, I'm tired of like hits or command centers or a missed call taking away from a really good game, because this game was a really good game. The past three Banjo Bowls were blowouts. The Riders didn't even have a chance. This game, they had a chance at the end to come back. So I think, to answer your previous question, was this a moral victory? Absolutely not, because they still lost their seventh, or they haven't won 7 games in a row. But I think they can build on this one, if that makes sense. And they go on the bye, and they have Calgary next. So if they lose to Calgary, then we're in trouble.
I've seen other fans say that, well, it's kind of an interesting conversation, because now I'm learning that illegal and dirty aren't the same thing. So it ended up being an illegal hit, but not a dirty hit. And you can't hit a quarterback at or below the knee. I think that the contact started above, and then he kind of moved down and hyperextended Strevler's knee, which is unfortunate. And
Yeah.
I guess what sucks is that that's 3 quarterbacks that have been hurt by Miles Brown this year. At least he's involved in the play. Now, I don't. This is going to sound bad. I think Miles Brown is reckless on the field, but I don't think he's malicious. So like the Drew Brown one, yeah, I know he got knocked down by an O-lineman, but I don't think that he was hit so hard that he needed to barrel roll like into the, which sucks. And then, he wanted to, but, and I say this, I think that Mike O'Shea and Corey Mace like a little bit of that in their defenders. I think those 2 coaches get it. Mike O'Shea played that way himself. His defenders.
So did Corey.
Yeah. Brandon Alexander plays on that edge. It's unfortunate. You never like to see guys getting hurt. And I guess at some point, when he's knocked 3 quarterbacks out of a game, that's kind of interesting. Like, what's going on there? He's playing hard to the football. You can't deny that, but it does suck when stuff like this overshadows a tight, hard-fought football game by both sides. And I think we can all agree on that. But like I said last week, Labor Day and this time of year, everything gets personal. The glasses with your preferred team's colors get a little bit thicker, and you just are desperate for victory and desperate for the Grey Cup no matter what. But yeah, I've seen Ticat fans saying, hey, that's not dirty and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, these 2 teams are probably not going to play the rest of the year. Just the way things are trending down, unless the Riders recover and play them sometime in the playoffs. But that's where we're trending right now. And, after starting 10-0, a blocked punt, an interception, the Riders and the Bombers go into halftime of the Banjo Bowl with the Bombers only up by 3. And I think at that point, the Riders probably were happy with where they were sitting, because they come out of the room and they score a touchdown. They go 96 yards in 3 plays and take the lead at Princess Auto Stadium. And they did not fold like some of the other Rider teams in past. Like last year, a block punt and an interception. And I know, was that the roster was sick, so they really...
Yeah.
Craig Reynolds had to like drive some backups to Winnipeg to get into the lineup. But then the third quarter really just ended up being, a tight battle, a good football game until, the end of the game, when the Bombers end up, taking that lead back. And on the play, where Miles Brown ended up being a part of injuring Chris Streveler, it didn't make a difference in the game. It just overshadows it, because on the same play, the Bombers took a misconduct penalty, so it only ended up being a gain of 5 yards for Winnipeg, and so it didn't really affect the outcome of the game. But on that drive, it became Kenny Lawler time, and the Riders had some great coverage on him, from Roland Milligan to Marcus Sayles, but they couldn't stop Lawler. Something happened there where he got really fired up. I think they called, or Mace tried to challenge for offensive pass interference on that same play. He did yank his arm, but I think it was kind of a, hand fighting, receivers and DBs kind of going both ways. But that was an interesting one. And I think that probably made the Riders more of a villain in Winnipeg trying to do that.
Well, I thought he was going to challenge the roughing the passer first, and I was like, I don't know. Like, I was mad. Like, I had so many emotions because I didn't want Streveler to get hurt.
I know.
So I'm upset about that, but I'm also upset because I don't think that the hit was egregious. But I think, if, and I can't remember if it was Sayles or Milligan, but if they wouldn't have had their hands, if he wouldn't have had his hands on Lawler, I do think that would have been offensive PI, because like, Sayles was going for the ball, and the defender has every right to get the ball as well. But if you're hand fighting back and forth, I like that they didn't overturn that, because again, it wasn't egregious that Lawler did anything that Sayles really didn't do. So I was fine with that. But then I don't want to say that's a mistake, because I think Mace was just trying to maybe take a little bit of momentum back when they were gonna have all that momentum without that misconduct penalty, maybe. But I think there was, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think there might have been a chance later in the game that he could have used either that timeout or his challenge. So maybe not the smartest challenge, but I can understand if the guy in the booth saw Lawler, take his hand down, I can understand why he's like, yeah, challenge that. So it's kind of a 50-50 challenge, but
yeah, that's an interesting, because did he challenge it before the objectionable conduct? Because then what's the point of the penalty? You're not getting the ball. You're not. But and I know some Bomber fans, they were saying that Mace took Brown out of the game because he thought it was dirty. I think he took Brown out of the game to cool the temperature down.
For sure,
And probably both ways. Because they started chirping, and that's when this objectionable conduct came out, and I don't think that he wanted his defense to retaliate and get things going and lose control of the game at that point.
Yeah, like you said, I think Mace, when he was first hired, I went to the meet the coach, and he said his number 2 thing is violence. He wanted his players to be violent, but within the rules of the game.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he wasn't taking Brown out because of his play. I think he was taking him out because he saw how rattled he was. And you know what? Let's think about Brown. Let's think about his mental health here, maybe, because in his head, he's probably like, man, what can I do? Because, like you said, I think the first play against Brown, 50-50, maybe he didn't need to barrel roll. Maybe he did. We can't put ourselves in that, see how much momentum and force he had. So who knows?
All the plays also look completely different when you slow them down frame by frame.
Yeah. But maybe he's thinking, like, he's snake bit. He's like, how it, and you don't want him to pull back. You don't want him to let up, because this is football. It's a tackle. It's a physical sport, and you play to the whistle. And so I think Mace was just taking him off, to cool down the temperature of the whole thing because he doesn't want him to get a penalty. He also maybe doesn't want the Bombers to see him out there still and to, try to egg him on to get him to do something stupid. So I think that was actually a really smart play by Mace to take him out and to let him cool down. I think he went back in. It's not like he benched him for the rest of the game, but because we've seen Mace do that too to Jaden Dahlke earlier in the season. And
now he's been benched for 13 weeks.
It seems like it, yeah. But again, like I wish we weren't spending 10 minutes talking about this when we had such a good classic Banjo Bowl that we had.
Yeah. After that moment and the rest of that drive, Zach just looked to Lawler. He hit him for 25 yards, hit him for another 5 yards, hit him for 10 yards. And then the fourth quarter starts and they hit him again for 6 yards and a touchdown. And the Bombers took the lead there and they never gave it up after that. The Riders did have an opportunity with a minute left to get the ball back. And Trevor Harris ends up getting picked off by Tyrell Ford. A bad decision.
I don't know if it was a bad decision. I think it was the right guy to throw to, but I think he just put too much air on it. I think if it would have been more of a bullet pass, or and I think they can take this to the game film. If he would have pump faked and Ford would have bit on it, he could have went over top and he would. I think it was a Joe. He would have been wide open. But again, I don't think necessarily it was a bad decision to throw that ball. I just think it was a bad throw.
Tyrell Ford, man, 6 interceptions, tied for the league lead. His next game will be against his brother Trey.
Can't wait.
Already announced as starter in Week 16 for the Edmonton Elks. Zach Collaros, 24-31, 231 yards and a touchdown. Brady Oliveira, 11 carries, 43 yards, but 6 catches, 60 yards. They were talking about it on the broadcast. The Riders were okay with Oliveira getting that ball in the flats and, making those tackles as hard as they are to make on Oliveira, especially as the game goes on. But man, this was a tight battle all the way.
Yeah, and in the fourth quarter, they were able to kill the clock with all those short completions and Oliveira getting that. And so that is what you want your offense to do. That is how you win in the CFL, is by controlling the clock, getting a lead, and then controlling the clock in the fourth quarter. And Winnipeg did that to a T. And the Riders still had a chance to get back into it, but barely, because just the way that Winnipeg was able to counter every single thing that the Riders were able to do.
Yeah, the Bombers had the ball for 34 minutes. They only took 3 penalties, and they didn't turn the ball over. The Riders did, including, early on, Keyshawn Johnson falls over, and the Bombers take advantage of that. Speaking of Johnson, he gets another touchdown. That 5 consecutive games
I believe so.
Keyshawn Johnson, 3 catches, 33 yards. The leading receiver for the Riders was Kean Schaefer-Baker, 6 catches, 120 yards, including an 81-yarder in this one. And then Sam Emelis, his best game, I think, in a few weeks, although 4 catches on 9 targets, 66 yards and a touchdown. He had a drop, contested catch that would have been a touchdown Labor Day, and then he makes the catch later in the game, and then he has a touchdown in this one. But Frankie Hickson, 9 carries, 46 yards, and they only gave him the ball for 2 catches in this one. The Riders... He
dropped one that he absolutely should have had.
That was a bad drop. Harris threw that ball perfectly, and that was early in the game too. A bad drop by Frankie Hickson. The Bombers, they play physical. They beat you up at their running game, but the Riders aren't there yet. They're not doing that yet, and maybe that is the revolving door at offensive line. The Bombers got Stanley Bryant back. They got Pat Neufeld back. And Neufeld did get hurt in this one. I think he did return to the game. But the Bombers are getting healthy as they head into the bye week with the Riders and the Elks, who go into the bye sweeping the Labor Day series with the Calgary Stampeders for the first time since 2004. That was the Matt Dunnigan-led Calgary Stampeders, 37-16, the final score as the Elks beat the Stamps. Now, I just want to go through some Elks news before the game here because, first of all, congratulations to Aaron Grimes. I know he was on the PR for the Bombers this year. They do release him. Grimes signs that one-day contract with the Elks, retires in Edmonton, and is now like a community ambassador for the Elks. And he's a great guy in the community, and he's back where he belongs in Edmonton, a Grey Cup champion in 2015. But there was some, I guess, proposals that have been approved. Now, there's no money for it, so I don't know why. Maybe it's just public posturing. We know how these things go. To renovate and update Commonwealth Stadium. And now this stuff is going to cost $250 million. And it's stuff like updating concessions and bathrooms and concourses and all this stuff and making it more modern. But this, to me, it doesn't make the viewing experience for football any better.
Right.
But I understand that Edmonton wants this 55,000 seat venue because of the artists and the events that Commonwealth is able to bring to Edmonton. Just within a few weeks, they had Metallica twice, they had Pink, and then they're able to switch to football. And, you know, for Metallica, you combine both nights, that's over 100,000 people. Pink, 50,000 people there. Another 30,000 people at this game. We'll talk about attendance in Edmonton here right away here. But it doesn't, maybe people will want to check out the stadium, but I don't know. It's a short-term thing to maybe squeeze another 15, 20 years out of Commonwealth Stadium. That's pretty expensive just for that. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, to put in perspective, I think Mosaic Stadium was built for $232 million, right around that $230 million mark. I know it would be more expensive now, yeah. But I saw on Twitter, and I can't remember who it was, but someone suggested that maybe they could dig the field down a little bit and add a few more rows or 10 or 15 more rows of seats to get it so that your playing surface, you have seats right up to it. And I would love to see the logistics of that and if that's how much that would cost, because if they could do that as well with these other, modernizations, I think that'd be a really cool way, because then you could feel like you're a lot closer. Even those seats that you're up there, as long as you see the seats going down to closer to the field, it will feel like it's more intimate. It'll feel like it's closer, and you could probably add another 5 or 6 or 800 seats or whatever of seats that you'd actually be able to sell. I know they're not going to sell the upper deck seats for most Elks games, but if you let's just put this out there, and then we won't have to talk again. You had this many people there, and it wasn't because of the stupid name. It was because they've won games, okay? So let's put that to bed.
Well, and let me say this, too, because a lot of people that are cheering for the name change say it's all because they gave free tickets to kids 17 and under. I've been a season ticket holder since 2015. They've been doing this for the Labor Day rematch since at least then, and maybe before. So it's not a new thing to games in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm. But so again, if they could do something to make it so that there isn't that stupid, 20 yards of track or whatever that's separating I think that would be beneficial and something to look at. But again, if you're going to spend $250 million and you're not going to improve sight lines, you're not going to improve the actual watching of the game, That's a lot of money, and I don't know if, the government's going to throw in a lot of that money, and I know their new owner has money to burn, but I don't know if that's the smartest money to burn. You could spend $300 million and get a really nice stadium that, you could have a good atmosphere for football. But let's be honest, that atmosphere at Labor Day was awesome, even with just the lower bowl
It was.
filled. But again, being there, I'm not there. I've only seen one game there, and even that one game that I saw 10 or 12 years ago, the players seemed like ants, and I was sitting down in row like five, just because it's that extra, space away, right? So
Oh, I get it, man.
I hope they could figure that out.
I don't know if this sounds stupid. It probably does because it's coming out of my mouth. But what if they, what if they just tore down one side completely and moved everything in and then the field over? I don't know. I mean, when you're talking $250 million, I feel like that's doable for that
Yeah.
amount of money. And then you bring everything closer together and closer to the field. I feel like you'd be able to build one half of a stadium for that kind of money. And then you're not giving up the location. You're preserving the 50,000 seats for the one or two events that fill it every year. And then once a decade for the Grey Cup or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. That being said, it appears that Calgary and Edmonton are both bidding for the 2026 Grey Cup, so they're probably going to want these things figured out by then. I'm surprised that Calgary's in this one.
Well, let's be honest. Is Calgary in? They may be putting in a bid, but if you're gonna put McMahon Stadium against Commonwealth for a Grey Cup, I know what I'm picking.
Now, okay, let's just talk about Calgary in general because Logan Bonner gets the start here. Jake Maier on the bench. Was it the wisest decision here, Sheldon? It's a short week between Labor Day and the Labor Day rematch on the road in Edmonton. Here, buddy, let's see what you can do. 5 interceptions later. That was a tough position for him to be in.
Well, for sure it was, but I think Dickinson was just hoping to get that boost that usually quarterbacks get when they're playing a team and the team doesn't have film on them. But it reeked of desperation, which honestly, they needed to have some desperation because I think, it's taken him a long time to realize this, but Jake Maier's not the answer there. After this game, it doesn't look like Bonner's the answer either, but this was his first game and he was thrown to the fire. Like you said, short week. It makes it like less of a short week, I think, because you're playing the same team twice, and so he would have practiced the scout team for them the first week of practice anyway. So I think I understand why he made the decision, but at the same time, this just is like, to me, it's like how Scott Milanovich pulled Bo to put in Taylor Powell, which was fine. But at the time, Bo wasn't the problem. It was the defense that was the problem. And the difference here, I think, is that Maier is the problem.
And the defense the problem, and the special teams is the problem.
Everything is the problem. That's why they're number 9 in the power rankings now.
Well, I guess let's just talk about Calgary because their fans will tell you 2 guys are showing up on a consistent basis, and that's Rene Paredes and that's Reggie Begelton. 8 catches, 123 yards in this one. Now, 8 weeks ago, Calgary fans and the rest of the league are laughing at Edmonton. Now they have a new private owner. They see the momentum picking up in Edmonton. Now, some people are attributing the success to Larry Thompson, which I find kind of weird. But Calgary fans are now saying, well, we have a non-committed owner. We've promoted from within too much. And now we've given the offensive coordinator duties to Pat Delmonico and the defensive coordinator duties to Brent Monson. Well, we let Ryan Dinwiddie go and we let Corey Mace go when basically we just chose the wrong guys. Whether it was the coach's cap that forced them to do it, but now Calgary fans are pointing the finger at ownership, wondering if they aren't spending enough on players. Now, Bo Levi Mitchell goes to Hamilton. Who's the big money guys in Calgary? It's an interesting discussion. Because their defensive line has sucked. Since Charleston Hughes goes to Saskatchewan, and then they have Sean Lemon. He goes to Montreal. They keep losing all these guys to free agency and coaches, and now the well looks like it's finally dry, man.
Yeah, I think the problem here is that I don't think Dave Dickinson was ready or is capable of wearing as many hats as he's wearing. And at the same time, when Hufnagel was there, and I'll say outside of Henry Burris and Charleston Hughes, I think those are the only two times where he gave up on a player or thought that he would give up on a player before it was too late, and those players came back to bite him. But there was a long time where, there was, Travis, and this may be even before Hufnagel, but when they would let Travis Moore go, and then he goes to the Riders for a year, and then he's done. There was other players too where that would happen, and it always seemed like Calgary knew a player's best of 4 date was there, and they had somebody back there ready to take over. Now it doesn't seem like that's happening, and I don't think they let Bo go because of the money. I think they let Bo go because he was struggling, and then Dave Dickinson just thought, "Hey, we've always had our backup quarterback has always been the next guy, ready to go. Let's put him in there."
But I guess who did they spend that savings on?
Well, true. Yeah, I don't know. But they are spending up to the cap. Like it's not like the reports have come out and say that they're only spending $4 million on players.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the ownership, they're obviously not. They're putting so much money into the Calgary Flames and to this new sports entertainment district that they're putting there, and they're not. They didn't even think to include the Stampeders in that. You have a stadium where you're paying rent to the university, and every time you try to make an upgrade to that university, they charge you more rent, even though you're paying for the upgrades.
So why spend more? Yeah.
Exactly. So it just seems like Calgary, the franchise, is stuck between a rock and a hard place right now. So maybe it would be beneficial for Calgary Sports and Entertainment to sell them off to somebody who, like a Larry Thompson. I'm sure there's local business people in southern Alberta that might want to own a CFL team too, but it's easier said than done. But there's something wrong in Calgary, but also this is the first time in like 20 years that something has been this wrong in Calgary. So
I was gonna say,
Calgary fans, I'm sorry, but guess what? You get to deal with it for a little bit. Every other fan base has had to deal with this. Every other fan base has had to have seasons where we go and we know we're not going to make the playoffs. We have to rebuild. We have to, so I have no sympathy for Calgary fans who are this upset right now just because, you're the Patriots. And they actually are doing exactly what the Patriots did. The Patriots just let all their coaches go, and they thought that Bill Belichick was all that and all that. And then, their quarterback goes, and then the next guy up can't handle it. And then they have to draft a guy. And now the Patriots are what they are.
Well,
it seems like Calgary Stampeders are too.
What is unfortunate is just when things like this happen in the CFL, the money dries up. People stop going, and then it really starts hurting teams. And I don't think people like to see that. So there's that. Because I think there are some teams on the brink, and previously it was Edmonton. All of a sudden there's all sorts of hope, and they got pyro at the Labor Day rematch and crazy things going on there. But the rivalry between Calgary and Edmonton, Sheldon, runs so deep, and it runs in so many different ways. Edmonton's got a rink. Well, we're going to get a new rink. Edmonton wins, and we're going back 45 years. Edmonton's winning all these Grey Cups. Well, guess what? Calgary, we're no longer going to struggle like this. We're bringing in Wally Buono. We're bringing in Doug Flutie. And then that's when they really match up, Calgary and Edmonton, for the past 30 years. Edmonton has crushed them for how long? And then it became Calgary crushing them for how long? Now the fact that it's back to Edmonton beating them, sweeping them in the Labor Day game, excitement with the new owner. I think Calgary fans see that and say, no. Edmonton fans have something nice. I want something nice now. We can't let them one-up us in multiple ways. So this rivalry runs so damn deep in this province, and I live right in between them.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, when I say I don't feel sorry for the fans, what I'm saying is, as a Rider fan, we've gone through pretty lean years, but there's still been support. I know that the support hasn't always been as great as it was, and right now it's really not that great just because of the low that we've kind of been on. But we've been there. So if Calgary fans are going to just abandon ship when you have one or two not great seasons, that's not a good look. You need to support your team. But on the other hand of that, I know that money is tight right now. I know that cost of living is high right now. I know that if you're not impressed or not having fun or not enjoying your sporting team going there, I can understand how you can make that less of a priority when it comes to your spending. But so I guess what I'm trying to say is, stick in there, Calgary fans, because it will get better, but it might take a while to get better.
I guess, do you see a complete house cleaning coming? I mean, it does seem like the heat is on, not Craig, but Dave Dickinson. I know there's the coach's cap in there, and that's probably going to decide how far they can really go with changing things. But hey, Edmonton fired their coach. Look where they are now. I guess I see other players, former players, throwing shade at the Calgary organization. Interesting decisions being made.
I think they just got too complacent. I think they just got too set in their ways on how they do things, and at the same time, I just don't think Dave Dickinson is really the right guy to have both hats. I think Dave Dickinson is a really good head coach. I think he's a really good offensive-minded head coach, but he needs to have a really good defensive coordinator, and I think he needs to have a general manager who's getting him players that he can then coach and turn into all-stars, because Dave Dickinson didn't forget how to be a good head coach. Chris Jones didn't forget how to be a good coach, but when you have too many hats on him, when you're taking away time that you need to be dedicating to your coaching, when you're trying to, negotiate with agents about player extensions and all that other crap, that's something that somebody else should be handling. If there wasn't for this stupid operations cap, we wouldn't have, 2 or 3 head coach GM combinations in the league, or I know we had more at one point, and I think Dave's the only one left right now, right? Yeah. But there was 3 at one point, just because of this operations cap, and it's just affecting the on-field play, because we saw what it did in Edmonton, we see what it's doing in Calgary now, we saw what it did in Saskatchewan before that.
It was 3-2 Stampeders after the first quarter, Sheldon.
It was.
And then The second quarter starts, and McLeod Bethel-Thompson hits Hergy Mayala for a 60-yard touchdown, and then we're off to the races. The Stamps answered back with the field goal, so it's 10-6. So the Stamps were in it for a short time. I actually thought Bonner's he's looking all right.
Yeah.
And then, it fell apart. The next drive, Tevin Jones has a 13-yard rush for a touchdown, 16-6 Edmonton. And actually, the only touchdown that the Stamps scored in this one was scored by Mike Rose, the defensive lineman, taking it all the way to the house. McLeod Bethel-Thompson, I don't know if he got hurt on the play. He was down on the field, and then Trey Ford comes in and takes over for the rest of the game. Trey, he only attempted one pass. At that point, the game was all Edmonton, and he had one rush for 4 yards. But Jarius Jackson, after the game, taking away all doubt during the bye, saying that when we come back to Commonwealth Stadium to play the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Trey Ford is our starting quarterback. Again, McLeod Bethel-Thompson, he lit up the Stamps on Labor Day. In this one, 15 of 25, 2 touchdowns, and that interception to Mike Rose that I mentioned here. If this was the Elks of old, that interception might have crumbled them. But Logan Bonner was throwing interceptions left and right. I know the last one on the last play, whatever. But 5 of them, that's terrible. There's no really sugarcoating that one. But I thought, to remove all the questions and all of that, a good move from Jarius Jackson saying, hey, we'll be back here in 2 weeks with Trey as our guy.
Yeah, I agree, because they decided that Trey was their guy, and then he got hurt. McLeod Bethel-Thompson was able to come in and steer the ship while he was gone, which is great. And I kind of feel for him, because, for him to come in and play that well, and then just to be like, yeah, no, you're not, now you're back on the bench. But I think they've kind of bought in. I think that they understand that it's going to take both of them now to, if they're going to make the playoffs, which is a very high, it's a possibility now. 3 weeks ago, it wasn't a possibility, and now it's definitely a possibility.
Right now, so it almost looks likely.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
That October 5th game between the Riders and the Elks, and if they steal one between their home and home with Winnipeg.
Yeah. No, that's very fair.
Yeah.
But it's going to take both of them probably to get them to that spot. So, if I could, I would put Edmonton number 1 in my power rankings, just because they're playing, honestly, I think the most powerful right now. I just can't jump them up that high in 1 week, but they're playing awesome football. They're playing exciting football. They're not making many mistakes, and even when they are, like you said, they're not letting it crumble them like it was earlier in the season. They are the real deal.
Carl's Jr. and Popeyes are getting real pissed off, because every time the Elks score 3 touchdowns, you get a free burger at Carl's Jr. I've noticed that they actually made us buy a pop at Carl's Jr. this time, so they can get a little bit of profit. And anytime they score 30 points, you get a free piece of chicken and a biscuit from Popeyes, no purchase required. So thank you, Elks. You are really keeping me fed. Like, they got the number 1 offense in the CFL right now. And Calgary could not stop the run. Kevin Brown had 91 yards rushing. Leak had 55 yards rushing. Rankin had 34 on 4 carries. Like, they were just dominating Calgary in every facet of this game. It was a good punting effort from Cody Grace, I will admit. But so Jake Julian, too. He had 2 singles. One was an 85-yard punt. So that he almost hit the speaker at center field at Commonwealth on one of them.
which would have been pretty odd.
And then Larry Thompson driving through the Calgary Stampeders bench. Dickinson looked like he wanted to punch him.
Yeah, he did. He sure did.
And then, I haven't even talked about it, over 32,000 people in attendance at Commonwealth Stadium. Probably the best atmosphere at a game as the Elks. And maybe the best atmosphere at a game in Edmonton since the 2015 Western Final.
It certainly seemed that way on TV. It seemed awesome.
Yeah. And then they won. There have been times when a good crowd comes and shows up and they lay an egg. Well, now they won. And we got Brothers Ford doing battle at Commonwealth Stadium September 21st.
It's circled on my calendar, that's for sure.
Hopefully the weather's good and people come back out to Commonwealth Stadium to watch that one. And then they have the Riders after that. There is real chance here that the Elks get, 3 consecutive great crowds. Mm-hmm. And man, how fast perception changes.
It's almost like we said you just had to win.
Yeah. I guess it was that simple, man. It was just that simple for the Edmonton Elks. And they went all in with Gino. 6 catches, 97 yards, a touchdown. Yeah. Gino being Gino. Like, he's line dancing in the end zone. I mean...
He's having fun. He's back to having fun.
I see kids in the front row with mini footballs. They throw Javon Leak the ball. Sign my ball! And he's running around looking for a pen. And Gino Lewis signing mini footballs for the kids. Like, man, this was a big time win for Edmonton. And I know it's at the expense of Calgary. And maybe they are currently at rock bottom for this regime. But wow, what a performance from the Edmonton Elks. Those Calgary Stampeders hosting the reigning Grey Cup champs on on Saturday. The Ticats hosting the REDBLACKS on Saturday, and the BC Lions hosting the Toronto Argonauts on Friday. That's coming up week 15. Sheldon will wrap up the show quickly right now with your updated power rankings. They are on the screen right now after week 14 of play, man.
Yeah, so Montreal, Winnipeg, Ottawa, BC, Edmonton, Toronto, Hamilton, Saskatchewan, Calgary. I struggled with the last 2 because they're both playing like crap, but one of them is actually in the games and the other one doesn't seem to be in the games. So I had a lot of people last week say that Calgary should have been last, and when I had the Riders last. So I don't know how I'm biased there, but now I listened and I put Calgary in the bottom. But like I said before, I wish I could have Edmonton higher. If they continue to win, they will be. BC, I had a couple comments saying that BC should be higher than Ottawa, but I think...
I don't know about that. There's some people that say Edmonton should be, and I actually I usually stay out of this stuff, but they say Edmonton should be above BC. BC just smashed the reigning champs in Montreal,
and they beat Ottawa at home before that, and Edmonton only beat the Stamps twice in a row. So yeah. Absolutely.
And Ottawa's 8-3-1. Like, why does BC? Why should they be above them? Ottawa beat BC at home, so
and Winnipeg's won 6 games in a row, 5 or 6 games in a row. So like this season is just so weird because we have half of the teams at the beginning of the year that were just dominant. Most of those teams are now not dominant, and the other teams are now the dominant ones, except for Montreal and I guess Ottawa. Those are the 2 constants,
and Hamilton, constant.
Yeah, true, but hey, Hamilton, they're up to number 7. They I think Hamilton fans, that's your Grey Cup. You're 7th in the power rankings, guys.
Hey, if they beat Ottawa, you never know. You never know.
Nothing would make me happier, honestly, than seeing Hamilton in the playoffs and Toronto not.
That would be insane. It could happen. Wow, man. Thanks for being here. I know it's quite late at night. I actually just crushed the coffee, so I'm feeling pretty good. That's week 14 of the CFL season. You can rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out on your favorite podcatcher. Check us out on YouTube. Leave a comment there as well, and subscribe to the show there. This wild season continues, and I'm loving every single minute of it. Thank you, Loverboy, for that song. Take care of yourselves and each other. We'll talk to you later this week, getting you ready for week 15 of the 2024 CFL season.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.